Talk is on rituals in Buddhism, and you're actually in the middle of a ritual right now, and we had a mini ritual of the meditation, which has a form which is supposed to be still, and I wanted to scratch the back of my neck so badly. Okay, but I waited. And so many of you are young, so this is kind of going to start with a history lesson. I was a Catholic kid growing up in upstate New York in the 50s. And back then, Catholic masses and things were done in Latin, so you didn't know what was going on. And my grandfather happened to be the head of the Knights of Columbus, which was the lay organization that helped raise the money and kept the things going in the church. So becoming an altar boy was mandatory, more or less, and you learned by rote the Latin for the Mass. And you participated in all the rituals. Now, back in the 50s, if you were lucky to have a TV set, there was only one channel. So the rituals in the Catholic Church were great entertainment. And they were kind of treated that way. We had rehearsals. And Christmas and Easter were very big events. Easter week was a whole week of events. And so that was my Catholicism. Because in terms of faith, before you had your first communion, you went to catechism. And before you were confirmed, you went to catechism. And that was it. By age 11, you had what the church wanted you to know, and the rest came from the priests. You weren't supposed to go to the Bible. That was for the Baptists. So by the time I hit puberty, or no, a bit later than that, senior year in high school, I was a cynic. I didn't believe in God anymore. I was just going through the routine, and when I went to college, I didn't go to church. I didn't pray. I didn't do anything. But at that time, it was the mid-60s, and this thing called Buddhism was getting a buzz among the academics. And you'd find classes where Buddhist things were kind of thrown into it, like Shakespeare from a Buddhist perspective. I mean, that was... So then you become an adult and you go ahead, and it's kind of aimless. You just go through your routines. And when we came out here, Shraddha, my husband, started coming here because he liked what he'd heard from a monk who spoke in West Hollywood. And for a while, I sat in the car. I was not going to have anything to do with religion. I'd done that. But sitting in the car, book or not, was kind of boring, so I came in with him. And my introduction to Buddhism was to sit on a cushion and meditate. Of course, no one told us what meditation was about. So you'd spend 20 minutes trying not to squirm, but you probably ended up doing it. And then there were Dharma talks. And Reverend Karuna was the abbot at that time, and she gave wonderful talks. So I started to explore Buddhism just because it was there, it was now kind of a part of my life. And the first question you come to, because there's no God, and in Catholics, in all religions, you know, God is there, and there's no God in Buddhism. And faith, you know, they give you certain things to believe, and you're supposed to believe that. And there wasn't really that. So was it a philosophy, or was it a religion? And so looking up the definition for this talk, the definition of philosophy from dictionary.com is the rational investigation of the truths and principles of being, knowledge, or conduct. Well, that's kind of Buddhism. Yeah, okay. But, same dictionary, religion is a set of beliefs that are held by a group of people. Well, I'm in a group and we kind of have a common set of beliefs, so I guess it might be a religion. In further reading, there was a Buddhist monk who said, Buddhism can become a religion if in your practice you create a series of rituals that you practice every day in exactly the same way from start to finish. And I have kind of a problem with that, and I realized driving here that I have a Zen bias. And in Zen, there's Thomas Merton, who probably died 50 years ago, and I don't know if he's read very much. He wrote a book called Zen and the Appetite, and the Birds of Appetite, which basically says the birds of appetite circle and descend and eat, and the carrion, meaning religion in this case. But with Zen, they don't find anything and they go away, and then Zen comes out because it's always there and it's never there. So basically the way I take it is philosophy is if you know it but don't practice it, and religion is if you practice it. So how do we come to our beliefs? How do we come to our practice? Well, we have Dharma talks. We have the sutras. We're told about the 5 precepts and the 4 noble truths and the 8-fold noble path and the 4 Brahmaviharas, and then you get into the paramitas, which either are 6 or 10 depending upon your tradition. And you read these or you hear these, and they're offered to you as potential beliefs to embrace. Because the Buddha, in the Kalama Sutta, when asked about who should you believe, said, do not believe anything on mere hearsay. Do not believe in traditions merely because they are old and have been handed down for many generations and in many places. Do not believe anything on account of rumors or because people talk a great deal about it. Do not believe anything because you are shown the written testimony of some ancient sage. Do not believe in what you have fancied, thinking that because it is extraordinary, it must have been inspired by a god or other wonderful being. Do not believe in anything merely because presumption is in its favor or because the custom of many years inclines you to take it as true. Do not believe anything merely on the authority of your teachers or priests. And whatever, through thorough investigation and reflection, you find to agree with reason and experience as conducive to the good and benefit of one and all and the end and of the world at large, accept only that as true and shape your life in accordance with it. So that's your job, to establish your beliefs. And one of the things you have to ask, why are you Buddhists? And it's because the Buddha taught the way things are. And if you embrace that, then all of the above you can follow, reject them. Everything we do as Buddhists is our search for the way things are. We only have our experience. We create our world, and we create it moment to moment. We don't accept somebody else's word for it. It's our perception, and we live with that, no matter how erroneous that may be at that moment. But we are constantly, through our practice, seeing anew. And we can see that our unskillful thoughts and actions and change. The Dalai Lama said, what if you discovered that this was... And he said, well, then we would have to follow that. Buddhism can change as you see things better, as you see things more truly, as you see things as they are. Unlike, and I'm not Catholic bashing, but it's part of my history, unlike Galileo being convicted of being a heretic, and only recently did they change that judgment. Okay? So what is our relationship to ritual? Because we do have rituals. And the Buddha cautioned us about that, because they can become fetters. They can keep one from attaining enlightenment because you cling to the ritual. So basically, yeah, you can have a ritual, but don't make that the be-all and the end-all. When I was growing up, again, the ritual of the Sunday Mass was a sin if you didn't go. And then as time progressed, the church decided that, well, if you went Saturday afternoon, that would be okay. That would fulfill your Sunday obligation. So literally, you could go play golf on Sunday. So, why are there rituals? Ritual is our connection to others. Subliminally. You come in here on a Sunday and you sit next to people, and there's comfort in that. You feel connected to them. You may not speak to them. You may only nod to them. You may totally ignore them. But you're in the same room with them. And there's something magical about that. There is a force to that. And besides being soothing, it gives order. If you are creating your life every moment, day after day, it can feel like chaos unless there's something that you can come to for order. You participate in a ritual that gives an order, however briefly, to your life. So, therapists have begun using ritual. They use it in family therapy, and they're using it in PTSD, because it helps people, like a bumper car, stay on a path and understand things better. And well, if you've been to rituals here, they're never perfect, because it's humans doing them. When I was growing up, priests were kind of like other beings. They had an other aura. And so, and I remember the rehearsals, everything had to be perfect. You know, there were no mistakes. But if you've been to any of our rituals here, the human always pops up. I'll say, I've said this before. When I took final ordination, you have to put this robe on, and it's great when you do it right. It's a big flurry, and it's around you, and you're there. I got tangled up, and 2 monks had to undo me and get it into the right place. But it was still the ritual that affirmed the years that I'd spent studying, my relationship to the Sangha. So it's something that gives me pleasure. A couple of weeks ago, we had the giving of the precepts, and I felt happy. That was why I did this talk, because I thought, why am I feeling so good about this? You know, because I had a jaundiced view of rituals, and you do them, but this gave me pleasure. And then I thought, well, the Ulambana, which we'll do next month, which is for the dead, and it's very soothing. The origin of the Ulambana is that a monk was very worried about the fate of his mother. He was convinced that she had gone to the realm of the hungry ghosts, because she was supposed to be very generous to the Sangha and to the monks, and she wasn't. She kept the money for herself, and he was convinced she was in the realm of the hungry ghosts. So the Buddha created this ritual where we call the spirits to come and to hear and to take the precepts and go through, and at the end of it we give all the merit that we've accumulated, and we give it to them so they may have a better rebirth. And I like that. And for all my cynicism, I believe we do call the wandering spirits here for this service. When I was about to take my full ordination, Reverend Karuna, you have a moment, it was a Dakasan, with your teacher, and you can ask any question. And I said, okay. In the metta meditation, we're supposed to talk about the devas and asuras and all these other beings, and says, I have a real problem with that. And she said, they can be whatever you want. And that was okay for me, because that at that time was what I would be able to accept. But if you read Hamlet, he speaks to Horatio, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. And so 20 years into this path, there's more to this world than I can previously accept. I now accept there is more to this world. So, rituals. It's not because I do these rituals, I'm a Buddhist. That would be falling back on Catholicism. That would be putting a burden on the ritual for my faith, which I have a belief. I don't have faith. But because I'm a Buddhist, I do these rituals. Understand? It's something I feel is good and helps not end suffering, but diminish suffering. And I can do that through the rituals that I know as a Buddhist. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?